things that I wanted to focus on is we always got to give you updates on what's happening at the very, very top. In addition to Trump trying to negotiate a ceasefire and then ultimately end the war between Russia and Ukraine, he also sat down for an exclusive interview with him and his best bud, his BFF, Elon Musk. And he spoke on people trying to break up their friendship and turn them against each other.
You're both aware, you have to be keenly aware, that the media and the punditry class, not that, I think you've proven they have no power anymore because they threw everything they had at you and they didn't win. And that was, the New York Times, Washington Post, 3 networks, every late night comedy show, 2 cable channels. They threw everything, lawfare, weaponization.
Sure.
And now I see they want you two to start, they want a divorce. They want you two to start hating each other. And they try, President Elon Musk, for example. You do know that they're doing that to you.
Oh, I see it all the time. They tried it, then they stopped. That wasn't. They have many different things of hatred. Actually, Elon called me. He said, they're trying to drive us apart. I said, absolutely. They said, we have breaking news. Donald Trump has ceded control of the presidency to Elon Musk. President Musk will be attending a cabinet meeting tonight at 8 o'clock. And I say, It's just so obvious. They're so bad at it. I used to think they were good at it. They're actually bad at it, because if they were good at it, I'd never be president. Because I think nobody in history has ever gotten more bad publicity than me. I could do the greatest things. I get 98% bad publicity. I could do, outside of you and a few of your very good friends, it's like the craziest thing. But you know what I have learned, Elon? The people are smart. They get it.
Yeah, they do, actually.
They get it. They really see what's happening.
Yes.
And I think that he's 100% right. What people are really threatened by is the fact that they have no power. What you see happening with the raging liberals on the left, and this is my honest assessment of what's happening. What you see happening with raging liberals on the left is they have lost complete control and power. They don't even have the ability to save themselves. And so what you'll see in that instance is people will start to lash out at those that they think do have power. And more importantly, the only thing that you can let happen to you is if you allow for people to drive you out. Right? It's almost like a marriage. Literally, it's like a marriage. Your friendships are like a marriage. Your marriages are like a marriage. Your relationship with your children are like a marriage. And one of the things that I told people on the stage at Let's Rant About It when we was in Detroit. Some of y'all were there, some of y'all weren't. But I told the people on Let's Rant About It in Detroit, and I said, listen. You guys have to understand. They said, Anton, what is some of the advice that you would give people in order to remain successfully married? Because you've been successfully married for almost 21 years. It'll be 21 years this year. And the first thing that I told people to do is you have to keep people out of your relationship. Because the minute that you start to listen to the outside noise, that is when you will start to get the little seeds here and there. They won't seem big at the time, but then they'll grow into trees, and then the roots will ultimately divide and lift up the concrete. And next thing you know, you got cracks in your foundation of your relationships. And it's the same thing with anything. It's the same thing in business, right? A lot of times you guys let your employees, if you have a partnership or you're working on something, you'll let your employees or you'll let outside influences start to let you turn your mind against the person that's next to you. I've had it happen even in content creation. I've had business relationships and business partnerships, and some of you may be familiar with it. Some of you may not be so much. Now, those same people are looking and licking their chops and they saying, you know what? Because I've gotten phone calls, I've gotten text messages, I've gotten conversations where people will be like, hey man, what would you ever think about, ever coming back together? And I'm like, man, I'm too far out. There's no benefit at this point for me to ever go back to the thing that I divorced myself from and that I'm 10 times better than. Why would I do that when I already got a new relationship, when I got new people that I'm in a marriage with, when I got my after hours team, I got my Carries and my Mollies and my Mikas and my Q Diddies and my Slimmies. Why would I ever want to go away from them in order to partner with somebody that I've already gotten out of a relationship with? You know what I'm saying? But when you let those seeds, whereas they could have been in that role and they could have been the ones that's benefiting significantly off of what it is that we putting together and all of this stuff. The real problem was that you let somebody else. Literally, I've seen people let a woman that they're not even in a relationship with anymore poison the well and then say, you can do better without Anton, right? How'd that turn out for you? How'd that turn out for you? Hmm? Big boobs in the butt wasn't that productive for you, right? You let the women get in the way of the money. You let the women get in the way of the money, didn't you? See, some of y'all may not be familiar with all of this stuff that's happening because you're new to what's happening in the channel, but the learned lessons allowed for me to be a lot more careful with the people that I then do business with. So then when I decided that, okay, you know what? I'm going to see how it is that I rock out with the people that I was able to recruit differently. And I was able to treat them differently than what I got treated like when I was supposed to have a partnership with somebody. You know what I'm saying? It's different. And Trump and Elon Musk, they are absolutely positively strong because as long as they communicate with each other, as long as they stay on the same page, because the only thing that can break them up, the only thing that can prevent them from being successful is them. The minute that you start listening to outside people is when you will then start to have problems within your own segment, your own relationships, your own things, your own fear. The minute that you start letting anybody else start poisoning the well, because they don't have any power over you until you let them have power over you. They don't have no power. These raging liberals and these Democrats, all they doing is whining. They bigger content creators than we are. They have a bigger platform in content creation than they do in Congress. I ain't never seen Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Jasmine Crockett do more interviews. They doing interviews like they Charleston White and Dr. Bryant. They got interviews lined up. They do more interviews than they do hearings inside of Congress. Because they don't have no power no more. Their power have been stripped from them because they've been irresponsible with their leadership. And so they get in there and they posture and they do these little Senate hearings and they throw these little jabs at the people that Trump has nominated, but they don't have any control of whether or not they're going to actually get nominated and pushed into their seats. And so now you got people that are basically dividing themselves. They're eating each other. If they can't eat you, they'll start to eat each other. They'll start to hate each other. I see people online. Listen, if you want to know what toxicity looks like, go on Facebook. If you want to know what toxicity looks like, go on Facebook. You know what I see on Facebook? Facebook, I call that high school. Facebook was supposed to be put into place exclusively for college students, and you had to have a college email address in order to sign up after your invite, and it is turned into high school. People a lot of times on Facebook are still stuck in high school. And when they can't, because I'm not on there, and the only things that I see is when people send stuff to me, right? When people can't get to you, they start to eat each other. And you realize it. And then people that was best friends for a long time, next thing you know, they don't like each other, or they've been divided because of your politics. And you don't even hear it. You so above it that you don't even hear it. But then when you come down and look at it, and you look at them and you stare at them and you're paying attention, you're like, oh, wow. Wow. These people been friends for all of this time. I thought that they was best buds. I thought that they had a business together. Nope. It's just like high school. It's literally just like high school. And that's why I stay out of that. I don't follow a lot of people on Instagram. I don't follow a lot of people on TikTok. The only people that I follow literally on Instagram are people that I work with. It's people that if you're not Q Diddy, Slimmy, Q, Mika, if you're not any of those people, if you 2K, Randy, if you're not a person that I actually create content with, I don't want to see it because I don't want to know your drama. I'm not interested. And so they have to make sure that they keep it together. But also on top of that, Trump is not only putting out multiple fires, not only making sure that we right size the government, but he's also trying to end the war in Ukraine.
Greg, thank you so much. Praying for those hostages to be released. Not only does President Trump want to put an end to the war in the Middle East, but he's also focused on Ukraine. The Trump team is heading to Saudi Arabia to meet with Russian and Ukrainian negotiators on ending the war. Here's what National Security Advisor Mike Waltz is expecting.
Number one, it has to be a permanent end to the war, not a temporary end to the war. Number two, this can't be ended on the battlefield. Number three, I talked about how the structure of our aid has to change. And then number four, we're talking about economic integration going forward as the best arbiter of peace. And in terms of long-term military security guarantees, those have to be European-led.
Meanwhile, the far-left media is trying to insinuate that Ukraine won't have an equal seat at the negotiating table. Watch this exchange between NBC and the Ukrainian president.
Have you been given any assurances that Ukraine will have an equal seat at the negotiating table?
So I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine. Never. We are thankful for all the support. Unity between USA, in USA, around Ukraine support, bipartisan unity, bipartisan support. We're thankful for all of this, but there is no any leader in the world who can really make a deal with Putin without us, about us.
I mean, we're right now, we're taking a listen. The world is on edge. We don't know what's going to happen with Ukraine. We don't know the next steps for Vladimir Putin. But what I think is really interesting, Griff, and I want to ask you this, get your opinion on this as a foreign correspondent, is the fact that President Trump is going to be holding those meetings, those negotiations in Saudi Arabia, almost as an affront to Iran, bringing the players in, Russia, bringing everybody into Saudi Arabia. What do you think about that?
Well, I think location's very significant. And I think that, you know, it's interesting, since Zelensky did that interview, when Trump landed back in Florida, he talked to the reporters there under the wing, as they say, and they asked him, will Zelensky be a part of the talks? And they said, he'll be involved. He'll be involved. I don't know what that is, but I think what's significant is not only perhaps the message to Iran there that you mentioned, Sarah, but also the fact that, you know, it's not just not having Ukraine on this trip. Europe's not on it. You know who's most threatened by Putin's ambition? Europe itself. And so it's saying, hey, we don't want Europe there, Ukraine, we're going to start this. Meanwhile, you just had Rubio talking with Netanyahu about zeroing in on Iran. So right now, while we don't know what this is going to look like, and President Trump said under the wing, we don't know what the negotiations are going to look like. Obviously, Zelensky, Ukrainians will become a part of it. They're the other half of this equation. However, there's a clear message, I think, being sent to Iran.
I think there is a clear message being sent to Iran, Griff, and Trump says he's working very hard to make peace. He sees Zelensky's involvement. He does. And I want you to take a listen to this. Is what President Trump had to say earlier.
We're moving along. We're trying to get a peace with Russia, Ukraine, and we're working very hard on it. It's a war that should have never started.
Do you expect Zelensky to be involved in these conversations? What will his role be?
I do. He will be involved, yes.
How do you think that's going to play out, Joe? I mean, do you see Zelensky right now getting what he wants from this? Or do you see Zelensky taking a step back and saying, whoa, wait a minute, maybe this is President Trump. You know, this is his negotiating tactic. He's going to go straight to Russia.
Right.
He's going to go straight to the Middle East. He's going to take this. He's going to do his negotiations. And then he's going to turn back to Zelensky and say, hey, now you got to either take this deal or decide where you want it to go from here. Because Zelensky is going to, I mean, for Zelensky, it's about losing people and losing fighters. For Vladimir Putin, it's a continuous push of fighters that it appears like he doesn't even care about what he's losing.
Right. There aren't many fighters left for Ukraine at this point. Whole generations lost. Putin doesn't care if he throws bodies at the problem all day. This isn't Vietnam. There won't be political pressure for him to end the war. He's even utilizing the North Koreans now to fight as well. The plan reportedly.
That sounds insane. That sounds crazy. You can't negotiate, really. I mean, it's hard for you to fight a terrorist. To think that millions and millions of generations have been completely lost, whew, that sounds crazy, bro. It sounds absolutely insane.
is that the U.S. is going to sit down with Russia in Saudi Arabia, and they're going to have bilateral talks. When those are done, then bilateral talks will happen between the U.S. and Ukraine. So, okay, this is what Russia's saying, this is what Ukraine is saying, and then everybody gets into a room. Of course, Zelensky should have a seat at the table. This is part of his, it's his country. He was invaded wrongly. But in the end, it's just amazing. It's 27 days into this administration, and we're already talking about peace between Ukraine and Russia. If Kamala Harris had won, it would have been perpetual war on the Eastern Front in Ukraine in perpetuity, and money being thrown at the problem from U.S. taxpayers.
And I agree with that. And I'm just thankful that hopefully within the next 30, 60, 90 days, that we get a ceasefire, and then ultimately we negotiate for people to just completely remove themselves out of war altogether. Obviously, this whole war is going to be memorialized, and I just don't want no more people to die, and we got to figure out what that looks like. But the fact that Trump is willing to negotiate peace between the two countries, yet we still have people saying what they do and don't want. Hey, shut up for 5 seconds. Let me let you stop talking. You don't see Putin over there talking. Just stop doing interviews. This would be the advice for Zelensky, for me, in my opinion. All right? Stop doing interviews. Stop talking about what you will and won't accept. It's not about whether or not you will have a seat at the table at this point. It's not about a seat at the table. What it's really about is, can you shut up long enough for us to actually get to a peace deal? And then hopefully we can end this war to where a whole lot more people won't die, whether it be Russians or North Koreans or Ukrainians. And then we got to keep on throwing money at the problem. And we want our money back.